Welcome to the Illuminati Broadcast. I'm your host, David Moore. Welcome. Alright, so I've been playing Dungeon Dice Monsters. It's a Yu-Gi-Oh game, but it's with dice. So you roll some dice, you summon a monster, and you attack. So let's see. I've been rolling my dice, and I get like a beaver warrior. I get this penguin soldier. I get this like fighter, and then I start going for like the higher number. So those are the level ones, and those are easier to summon, but you get like movement bonuses. So I'm like, I gotta collect a little bit of those movements and those attack bonuses. So then you build up your resources real quick, you build your little path, and as I get closer to the enemy, I start summoning bigger monsters. So then I summon dragons, my level 2 dragons, like 1,000-year dragon. Then I summon like ogre, swamp battle ogre, whatever his name is. And then I keep going. I summon this one like magical mysterious horseman, but if he gets hurt I can increase his powers, and by then I have like a good amount of movement crest and attack crest, so if they summon anything I kill it, and then I just get closer and closer to the enemy, and then like I surround him and I just start attacking him, and I just roll for the crest that I need after that, and he's like kind of stuck because like I stop him from being able to summon anywhere else. So that's my quick strategy on how to play that game. I remember when I was younger, I used to play that game on a Game Boy, and at first it was very difficult, but as I played it, I was like, I got really good at it, and I'm like, okay, I'm finally getting better at the game. Like, I remember the rules now. I've got the whatever, the flow of it, and I'm getting better at it. So I've been winning a lot of battles. I haven't lost any actually for a good like 2 days. Yeah, so that I'm just exponentially growing in that area. But another important thing is learning how to use the type advantages, which I love, and I kind of incorporate that into my magic. So obviously we have the Key of Solomon, so let's look at that real quick. I got a bigger one today because use it as a board game, but we can use it here. So Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, the Moon, Jupiter, North, East, South, West. Okay. In the game, well, obviously Venus is associated with copper and the color green. In the game, you have the beasts right here. So these guys are like, they're movement types. Whenever you roll for them, you get like a lot of advantages on movement. Some of them have like attack or magic, but it's mainly movement. So it's just to get you somewhere on the board. And they're represented by the color green, and they could be like mystical beastmen, the little penguin soldier. I know I have a whole bunch of them. The swamp battle guard, ogre ox thingy. Ogre, no, he's a knight actually. He's like a man beast thing. But whatever, you get a couple of them going through there, okay? And then in the sun domain, I could see that more as like those beast warrior monsters. They're associated with blue, but I put the sun. I mean, I don't know how they got blue from the sun. But you can think of that like as the animal kingdom, because the sun is associated with Leo, and Leo is seen as this beast, but you also have this king, so you get this beast man effect. So I guess that's where they got the beast warrior idea. And then you have Mars down here, and this is where the dragons start coming out. So in the game, these beasts destroy the beast warriors, and the beast warriors destroy, so Celtic Guardian would be here, and Jinzo, surprisingly, but you can use these guys to destroy the dragons, and the dragons are going to be like red, and they're going to be able, some of them fly. Usually they increase each other's attack. They're kind of dangerous in a way. They're a little more hard to summon just because, but once you do summon them, they can be really advantageous. Flying takes a lot more movement crests, so you need a lot of movement crests to get a dragon to fly. And then it's like, let's say you have 20 movement crests, you have to, and you want to move 10, you want to move 10 spaces, you're gonna have to use all those 20, because each movement takes up 2 spaces or 2 crests. So anyways, you got the dragons right here, and the dragons beat the right here. So the beasts, beast warrior, dragons, and then right here is gonna be the magicians. The magicians would be like mystical elf, dark magician, the slot machine, other creatures like that. Even like this gargoyle Rikushin. So you can see how it kind of goes this way. But even during the day, you can kind of see that like the morning takes over the evening takes over the night takes over the morning. It just kind of has this like flow to it. Yeah, so anyways, the dragons beat the magicians, which makes sense because dragons are usually resistant against magic, and it's usually knights that kill the dragon and the magicians kill something else. So once you have that, you kind of have this domain where even though it's Jupiter, in the game it kind of goes into skeletons and zombies, and then you can destroy the zombies. But I think that they kind of combine these two, so that probably would be Mercury, because there's only this many types of monsters after that. Yeah, so you fight the zombies. I guess there's another one too, which would be like items, but that's like the little chain. So you have the magicians beating the zombies, but then the zombies beat the beasts. So that's kind of like Mercury destroying Venus, etc. But then also in other games you have Mercury being the shadow, Venus being the light, Mars being the fiend, and then the moon being the dreams. So then the light destroys the fiend destroys the dream destroys the shadow destroys the light. So you get this like power balance kind of thing, and I think that kind of works in your magical rituals, like to help you understand like a mechanic, or really give your like your magic a test, almost like an energy, and you can use it to your advantage. Yeah, so let's see, we're destroying the mannequins and we're using this wheel. It's important to note that the mannequins are weak to everything. They don't have any resistance, but if we use this little chart, we can kind of get an idea of like how to destroy them and how to keep going with it and make it more exponential. So usually when I use my magic, I'm tapping into that solar energy, because what I'm doing is attracting this wealth energy. So this wealth energy wants this, because this shadow energy is attracted to the light. So the shadow's going to go and try to steal from me. So what I do is I use the shadow to circle me and destroy whatever fake positive energy is around me, like any fake smiles or masks. It kind of chips away at them. And then I use this fiend energy. Okay, and then the water energy kind of comes in, the dream energy, and it's like kind of sits around trying to pick up off the shadows that are eating off of me. So it's eating off of this, and then I get this fire energy and I grab that water energy and I crush it. But at the same time, I have to find a way to get that water energy. So maybe before I crush the water, I use it to eat away the shadows around me. So then once the shadows eat the light, then I use the dreams to eat the shadows, and then I use this fiend to eat away at the water, and then I can just eat away at the fiend with my own magic. So it's like this vortex of energies, and then I just... But that's good. That could be like kind of seen as like the lesser banishing ritual, which is where you summon a star, you invoke your energies, and you learn how to defend yourself and like bring positive energy in, or shielding, or cleansing an area. It's just basic magic 101 kind of stuff. I never really got into like the exact specifics of it, because I'm pretty good at it without doing that. But maybe I'll try to look into it and try to see what I can find that is definitive, where it becomes a staple. Yeah, so that's one cool thing that I've been working on. Let's talk about lineages real quick. Let's see if that can tie in anywhere. So my great grandfather was Noah. So when God decided to destroy the earth, because he's like, oh snaps, like the humans suck, these mannequins suck, like all they do is like ruin the world, like I'm just gonna destroy them. So then God destroys all the humans on earth, but he saves one family, and that's Noah's family. He's like, you know what, Noah, you're one of my kind, I gotta save you, like you're special, like your people are gonna be good for me. So he puts aside Noah, and then Noah, he has several children, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And Ham and Shem, well, Ham sees Noah naked, so Ham's like, he goes gets Shem and Japheth, and he's like, "Yo, Dad's naked over there in the cave. He got drunk, and now he's naked, and I need your help. I saw him naked." So then the other brothers go, but when they're going to cover their dad, Japheth basically holds the tarp so he doesn't see him, and so does Shem. But Japheth is kind of more of a leader. He's like, "All right, this is what we're gonna do, okay?" And then he leads them. And so then they cover Noah with a blanket. And then Noah's like, "Okay, I'm going to curse Ham because you saw me naked and I didn't like that." And then he's like, "Shem, you might be a little bit higher than Ham, but you're not higher than Japheth. And Japheth's going to rule over all of you." And that was the way that things are going to be. And the reason why that matters is because each one was born differently in a certain way. And there might be like a lot of discussions or debates on like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, why does Japheth get everything? Why doesn't Ham get anything? Why doesn't Shem get whatever? That's just how the rule works. That's how Noah made it, and that's how God wants it. So then Japheth is basically like the golden child almost, you know? But Japheth has children named Asher, and the Asher children are the ones that are like super, super special. So these would be seen as the Atlanteans. Like, these are the ones that are like really pure-blooded. They have everything that God wants. He's like, "Oh, I like these ones the most. These are my favorite creations. Like, these are my all-time favorites. These are the ones I want to keep. These are the ones I want to prosper and protect." So then you have the Asher. The rest of the other clans, sure, they're okay, sure, they're good, but they're never going to be an Asher because it's a specific bloodline. So the rest, you know, they kind of spread out in the world. They start, you know, spreading their seeds or whatever. But then the Asher gets through the world at the same time, doing its thing. It's always seen as like the best, but it's going through different parts of the world. So then you start off in Germany in a way. So let's say we were starting off before that with Noah. You can see the story of the flood as something kind of connected to Atlantis, because, you know, there was a city, and then it started getting, you know, really powerful, and God started destroying it. Same story with Noah. And then Noah saves that specific bloodline of those Atlanteans that he wanted to keep because he liked them. So then Asher has the most rightful lineages. Like, they're just more pure-blooded, more protected, more spiritually energized than the other ones. They're just more powerful. So you start off in Germany, because that's where the boat lands, is in Germany. And that's why it's called Ashkenazi, because they're born from the Ashers. They're more potent. They're more superior. So you, throughout history, you'll always see that the Ashkenazis are more potent. So that's why you have, when Hitler, he made the Nazis, that's Ashkenazi. So Nazi, Ashkenazi. If you spell Nazi, it's spelled the same way. Ashkenazi means Germany. And then, so you have like this, and then a lot of people were like, well, Hitler was a Jew. And it's like, yeah, so what? But he was a special kind of Jew, like the ones that are the best. They're separated. If you've ever met a Jew in real life, you would know that Jews have a hierarchy where the more pure-blooded you are, the higher up you are. So the more diluted you are, the less prominent your family is, the less whatever, you're seen as less. You're not as important. You're just another human being, even worse, a mannequin. So then, yeah, so we can go in a little bit more into the World War II stuff real quick. So an important thing about the Ashers is that they're usually a small tribe, but when they start spreading out and being too big, that's because there's a lot of dilution in the family. So there's something wrong there. You can't have too much of a good thing, right? So Hitler would have been seen as somebody that's like really like prominent in the family, because his job was like, you get more of a connection with God. You get a more divine intervention with God. God gives you a bit more power than other normal humans. And you can see the spiritual realm for what it really is. So he's seeing all these Jews taking over Germany, and he's like, uh-oh, if I don't stop them now, then things can get worse. So that's why he went and did that. And, you know, you'll be like, well, he attacked his own kind. Well, technically not really, because he's a more superior form of the Jew, and those were more seen as mannequins because they were just mixed up from different Jewish nationalities and different people, and like they just didn't have the same pedigree as him. So that's why he's like, well, you know what, I'm gonna make sure my lineage is like really protected. So that's where the Aryan stuff comes out, but it goes all the way back to the Asher. So long time ago, when the Ashkenazi was moving through, so he was in Germany, he moves all the way down to Israel, they move all the way down to Egypt, they start spreading out to like India, all the way to China and Japan. They make this huge U-turn, they take over Russia, they stamp themselves in certain areas, but they're always going to be kings. They're never going to be like low ranking people. They're never going to be just normal people. They're not going to be servants, they're not going to be slaves. And that's what the other signs are for. That's what the other brothers were for, to be those servants and slaves of the family. And the Ashkenazis were supposed to be the rulers. The Ashers are the rulers of each of those. So they would become high priests, they would become pharaohs, they'd become kings and queens, they'd become rulers, they'd become like whatever it is that is usually the top ranking. And they stayed true to that. But the thing is, they move. They don't stay stuck in one place for too long. Maybe a couple hundred years, but they don't like, not the way they do it now with civilization. Like, I'll get more into it. But so they did all their things, and then you have a time where they kind of move to Greece and Italy and areas like that. So they start the democracy stuff, they start educating people, they start bringing out new religion. But they also move up towards England, so they're going through Ireland. So then I have a huge amount of ancestry from that area too, when the first kings were created there. And those ones spread out and created the ones in England. And then you have the Scottish ones. And then they kind of become the Knights Templars again. And they make it all the way back. But if we go a little bit back more in time, then we go back to Greece and Rome. So this was a time when there was a lot of different Jews being moved around, pushed around all over here. But the top ones were going to be the ones that were politicians. And they were going to be mainly known as Greeks. But they were still Jewish, like hierarchy. So they were just better than the most. So then they pushed the Sephardics back into Israel, and then they try to bring themselves back into Israel, but it was very difficult. So this is the time when Jesus comes out. And when Jesus was coming out, he was like, yo, like, we have a really good part of us that is Ashkenazi. And it's the part of us that understands all of these religions, and there's something special about it. But then the other Jews were like, no, well, this is all we know, this is what we are, we're not going to change it for nobody, we're not going to let just anybody into our lives. But they were just mannequins, because they didn't, I think that was like the first time that you see a mannequin show its true colors in a way where they're, I want to say, more aggressive. They know what they want and they know how to get it. So the mannequins in that time would be the Jews that were stopping Jesus, because they're like, well, you can't do that. And Jesus was like, yes, I can, because he's Ashkenazi. So, because the Ashkenazi is always going to be the high priest. So eventually, like, as time went by, the Ashkenazis moved around, and it got harder for them to be like, well, who's the real Ashkenazis, who's the leaders? But it's still a concentrated bloodline, and it doesn't really spread out too far. It always sticks to one person usually. So it's not going to go to everybody. It's just going to go to that one person in the family. So not like, let's say you have kids, not all of them are going to be Ashkenazi. Only one of them out of them is going to be Ashkenazi and carry that bloodline. So it's just their rightful way. Like when you have kings, only one is going to be a king. Like, sure, you have it just in case he dies, then that becomes the king. But for the most part, that one bloodline is going to be the king. There's not going to be more going on. And that's important. That's kind of where you get that Nazi mentality, where they're like, oh, we can't have more than this, because that's just, you even had that in the Ottoman Empire, where Dracula was like, oh, I can't have too many of my kind out there, because then they're going to think that anybody could just be a prince and a king. Because you see that in the Ottoman Empire, once they start making a whole bunch of princes and kings, they start fighting for it all, and they start thinking that they can rule the world, and it gets crazy. So there's only supposed to be one, like, master Ashkenazi kind of thing. Yeah, so you have Jesus, and the important thing to look at is in Rome, you have JC, which is Julius Caesar. In the Jerusalem aisle, you have Jesus Christ. They're both JCs. They're both the same person, but they're both. It's this kind of story that is kind of repeated throughout Jewish history, is that like even the pharaohs have some of the same names as the prophets that came out in the Bible. They'll have the same name, the same story, the same achievements, etc., etc. They were the same people. So a long time ago, those pharaohs were the prophets that they wrote in the Bible, but they kind of like made it a little easier for like just average people to read it, or maybe there was some interpretation that went different in different directions, and that's okay, because that's just how the world works. It moves around and needs to express itself. And that's kind of what Jesus was teaching. He was like, look, I got all this Greek philosophy, but I'm trying to translate it and dumb it down for you all, because like there'd be moments where he's like, there's a wild man in the mountain and he's chained up, but he's full of spirits, and that's Saturn. He's chained up to all these other planets. He got all these other planets around him, but these planets are just times of the day. And he was trying to teach people that like, hey, there's a lot of mysticism here, but I want to bring that into our culture. I want to bring that back to this world so we can live with God. But the MANIKINS, which would be the other Jews, were like, no way, like if we bring God into our world, and because they like to worship him from a distance and do everything, you know, like ritual sacrifice and things like that, but they don't want to like advance with God. They're like, no, if we advance with God, then that means we have to put you at the top, and then what are we? Like, we won't have that power. You're going to destroy us because you know right from wrong. And if you know right from wrong, then you're going to destroy us because we're wrong. But if we're wrong and we destroy what's right, then what can fight us back? What can destroy us? And it gives them that advantage where it's like, oh, we're MANIKINS, but we can destroy God. We can control God. We can do whatever we want with him. Like, when he's here on earth, he has a human form. And if he lets us, he'll let us destroy him. And that's kind of what happened. But I think that in the story, maybe that was like a part where he was like, you know what? I am Julius Caesar. I am going to rule the world. And he does end up ruling the world. But then you get a story about Brutus stabbing him in the back, which is kind of like Judas doing the same thing. But maybe he lived. Maybe there was something there. Just like Cleopatra, you know, a lot of stories. Maybe they live, you know. Maybe they don't die. Maybe they just move on. And then that's kind of when you get back to the kings, and you get France, and you get all this movement. And then you get the Knights Templars, and they go all the way back to Israel, and they get back the Key of Solomon. So the Knights Templars are Ashkenazi, because that's when like that conspiracy stuff starts happening. So King Solomon was Ashkenazi. Remember, all the Jewish kings have to be Ashkenazi. There's no ifs and or buts. They have to be. I think there's a story in the book about an Ashkenazi, but he like brings home this flower to this woman, and she ends up becoming his wife. But it's like this flower, this plant, and it's called a mandrake. And I think that's a very important thing to remember. But in Pokemon, for Astaroth, they associate it with Victory Bell. And that's a bit of a mandrake, because Bellsprout can walk around on its legs, and it has a mouth, and it has this human features. And it's a bit of a dragon. It sort of resembles a dragon. But yeah, so the mandrake is like a plant that is a dragon. But, you know, usually you see it as like a human baby that screams and kills people. But yeah, there's something about that, right? There's something about that energy. And you can even kind of like fast forward a little bit. And in Harry Potter, you have the basilisk that can kill you with its eyesight. With just the sight of a basilisk can kill you. Its venom is very poisonous. That Slytherin green color, and Astaroth is associated with green because it's a Venus planet. Ashkenazis are said to have like an olive skin tone, but that they grew olives. And like they had oil, so that lets you know that they were kind of Greek for a time, and they had like that moment to be Greece. And my skin tone usually comes out green, and I think it's because the blue and the red mix and then make that green color. I don't know, something about that. All right, so we have a little bit of lore about the Ashkenazi. So then we have the Knights Templars. They go to Israel. They get the Key of Solomon. They start taking over things, but then they're like, wait a minute, the MANIKINS, they're out there. They don't want us to win. They're really strong. They're starting to get into places of religion, because the MANIKIN throughout history is just always going to be this opposition that thinks that they're one of us, but they're not. They do horrible things. And sure, the Knights Templars, the Ashkenazis, they might be seen as something bad, but usually you have to fight fire with fire. So you might see a lot of the rituals the Manikins do now are copied off the Ashkenazis. But at the same time, it's okay for an Ashkenazi to do it, but not a Manikin. And the reason is because no matter what, the Ashkenazi is going to go to heaven, but the Manikin's always going to go to hell. So no matter what this thing does, it's going to go to hell. The Ashkenazi usually only does it as a last resort. Let's see. Yeah, so the Ashkenazi is allowed to do whatever it wants. The Manikin's not. So just like a king's allowed to do whatever he wants, they're allowed to do whatever they want. But not the Manikin, not the normal people, not the Commonwealth. They're not allowed to do that kind of stuff. It's a no-go. Me, I'm really blessed. So like, since I have that Gemini, that May energy, that Emerald, Venus and Gemini, that's seen as that green color. So it lets me know that I have a lot of pure blood in me and that I was born at the right, time kind of thing. Because I was born May 27 at 2:57. So I have that 527 in there. Eventually, the Ashkenazis learn how to turn the 72 demons into the red dragon, which is 27 demons, and that's what you hear in a lot of Illuminati rituals. So the Ashkenazis are basically the originators of the Illuminati, but then you have the Manikins that kind of cover the Illuminati, so that way they can get all of that fame and blame and like kind of thing. Like, let's say you paint a mural on the wall and there's a whole bunch of Manikins that are like, oh no, I painted that, I did that, isn't that awesome, like what, and then they get all this kudos, and then you're just like, oh well, I'm okay, like who cares? Like, what am I gonna do? Fight over a painting on the wall? Like, I don't care if you say that you're it. Like, I could say that I did it, but at the end of the day, the Manikin told way more people that they did it. So they kind of get that thing but it's okay because the Illuminati is meant to encompass everybody. Everybody's part of that pyramid. So a long time ago in the Egyptian days, if you cursed a pharaoh, they would find you because they would know that you're cursing a pharaoh. They'll be like, oh snaps, there's a whole bunch of spiritual energy coming from over there. Though back then they really worshiped the Ashkenazi bloodline because the pharaohs were always Ashkenazi. So they would be like, oh snaps, you see that? They're doing something over there to try to kill our king. Let's go stop them. So they would go find that person. They would get whatever artifact that they did, destroy it, and destroy the person that was doing the witchcraft. Because magic was very powerful in the Egyptian days because the Ashkenazis were ruling it. When an Ashkenazi rules over everything like the way that it should be ruled over, you get a lot more spiritual energy in the world that's more pure, more true. So a lot of times when they show you this like really horrible image of Egyptian, that probably wasn't real. It probably was really nice and enlightening. And maybe a lot of people were really like happy in that time. But there's always going to be Manikins like slowly around, and then they start slowly infecting and infesting places and building more and more and more and trying to overpower the Ashkenazis, because the Ashkenazis will go big and then they'll go small, big and then small, big and then small, big and then small. Right now they're very small, just me. Boom. I just got that Ashkenazi bloodline, but it doesn't spread out. You have to remember, it doesn't spread out until I start ruling, then it starts spreading out, but it won't do that for a while because I have to defeat, the king, and so I can become the king. So anyways, if you talk to an Ashkenazi nowadays in Israel, which are totally fake Ashkenazis, they're Manikins without a doubt, but they play them Ashkenazi role so perfectly because they'll be like, a Sephardic Jew will be like, well, will I ever become an Ashkenazi? I mean, will I ever become a high priest? And he's like, no, only Ashkenazis can be high priests. But even then, they're Manikins, so they can't really take over that mantle. I could do it. I could build a temple, and I could be able to put God into it, and I could do those things. But they couldn't. And even these Ashkenazis can't do that. That's why they take so long to even build another temple. That's why it takes so long for them to even commit to a ritual. And that's why the red heifer doesn't come out until, like, my generation, because my generation creates it. And I'm not saying them, that generation out there, like whatever I was born into. I'm talking about my own. So yeah, so I'm special. I know it. I acknowledge it, and I never put it down. Never, ever, ever. So okay, and that's what the Manic would want you to do, is put it down, because if the Mannequin puts you in their reality, they're like, all of that is false. That's a false narrative. This is the truth, because this is how things work. This is the way the world works. These are the rules. This is how it's true. But that's why you have to pull yourself out and be like, I'm not a peasant. I'm not commonwealth. I'm king. I'm nobility. So I have to break your rules, and I have to show you that I have the magic. Because in Egyptian times, the pharaoh would do the magic. He would do the rituals, and he would conquer, and his magic would allow him to destroy enemies. That's why they were such a powerful nation. And they were put there to kind of stop people from moving in and out of Africa. So you just have all these white people up here and all these black people down here, and there's nothing going in between them. Because Egypt's right there stopping all of that. So everybody has to follow the rules that they set. And that gave the Ashkenazis enough time to be able to settle here, to settle this, to settle that, do this, do that, create civilizations here, and then kind of slowly disperse and then move along and let the world move the way it's supposed to move. Because that's how God wants it. Sometimes God wants it a certain way, sometimes he doesn't. In my time and era, I have to take over and I have to show that I got the power, but it's going to be a long fight because people don't believe in magic, but I got to make them believe, and it's whether they like it or not. Even if I like it or not, I still got to do it. All right. So where are we going? We're going through all these English territories. We're going back to Greece and Italy. The Ashkenazis move towards New York. They start conquering places. A lot of people say that Christopher Columbus was a Jew. He could have been an Ashkenazi Jew because he was really good with compasses, and Ashkenazis are the best at compasses. They created anything astrology. They created anything. So the Babylonians, those were Ashkenazi. Anything that was magical, Ashkenazi. The Persians were Ashkenazi. The ones now, Manikins. Back then, Ashkenazi. Now, Manikins. The loot. The Ashkenazis were the leprechauns. They had all the money. They were the elves. They had all the money. Like, if there was gods, they were the Ashkenazis. The pot of gold, everything. So that's why. And even you have like this story about what's his name? Not John Smith. Joseph Smith from the Mormons. He was Ashkenazi too. So what had happened is that long time ago there was Jews that made it to America before anyone else, long time ago, and they became these Lamanites and something else, and those were Ashkenazis as well. And they all killed each other, they fought each other, they wiped out the whiter version of themselves, and they just had like this darker version. But the last one would be like the Angel Moroni, and that's one of my last names, so whatever to anybody. So then that would mean that the Mormon religion is another form of Ashkenazi, but it's like saying, hey, Ashkenazis are the rightful rulers. Everything else is fake. That's why they're so closed off. But now there's a lot of Manikins in the Mormon church, and it's really hard for them to like separate themselves from it because they can't really, because now they're like basically controlled by the government almost. There's a lot of under layers that go into it. So all those under layers of what creates the Mormon religion and the rest of the religions. And then there's me, the true Ashkenazi bloodline. So then it's like, if I choose to follow the rightful heir, then that means I don't have that power. And then you go back to that Jesus and that Jewish story where the Manikins are like, if we follow Jesus, we die, we lose. But if we give him if we take everything from him and destroy him, we win. So they're kind of in that moment, and it's like, okay, Manikin, because you're not supposed to question it. Like, if you meet Jesus, you're gonna be like, heck yeah. So I would basically be Jesus. You would be like, heck yeah, what next? But then if you were a Manikin, you'd be like, how can I be better than the best? And that's where I'm like, okay, Manikin, let's go. You're not Ashkenazi, let's go. So then that's where a little bit of a battle comes in. But I can't be too focused on that. I have to just shoot my magic straight towards the enemy, the master of all the Manikins, which would be whoever's the most strongest person in the world. And who's the most strongest person in the world? The King of England, right? Because they own everything. You would think it would be the Pope, but no, it's not the Pope. It would be the King of England because he owns everything. He lives a lavish, beautiful lifestyle, does whatever he wants, gets whatever he wants. When you read the Bible and you see Jesus coming back from the dead, he becomes the king. He doesn't become the Pope. He becomes the king. Like, we got to put him there. We got to put my character there. But if I'm not there, then I have to fight my way up there, and that's okay, because that's, that's normal. That's how I like it, to destroy everything in my path. So I just have to get really good at magic, but that's the best part about being Ashkenazis. We're really good at magic. So anything Kabbalah, all of that stuff, demon summoning, Ars Goetia, King Solomon had to do it too. King Solomon got his throne taken away by a demon. And King Solomon was a poor peasant and had to make his way all the way back to being a king. And nobody could help him because they wouldn't believe him. So it's the same story. Nobody believed Jesus was the Messiah. And I hate doing God complex stuff. I hate being like, yeah, I'm God, get out of my face. Because it's stupid. To me, it's dumb. It's like, well, I can't prove it. I can't do this. I can't do that. So the only way to do it is using your magic to get where you need to be. Alright, so let's see. Let's fast forward the story a little bit. So we have Jesus, we have Julius Caesar, we have the Knights Templars, which are Ashkenazi. That's why they have the Baphomet. And my body kind of resembles that because I have that dark skin. I'm really good at black magic. I do have beautiful breasts, but they're natural. They're not like induced by any hormones or anything else. They're just there because I was born like that. That's Ashkenazi, Knights Templar, Baphomet bloodline stuff right there. So that lets me know I'm like legit. So then you have the Rosicrucians. Those are also mixed in. Then you have like secret orders, and then that's when you notice the Ashkenazi start kind of getting smaller, and then you have all these other kings and queens taking over, all these other mannequins, they start ruling over the nations, and you have a smaller version of the Ashkenazi, and it starts moving, and then you have all these fake mannequin ones, and they start following. They come to America, they start moving through, the mannequins are following them, but the Ashkenazis are usually going to be the forerunners. So like my family would have been the first ones here, would have been first ones exploring things, like marking everything, because they're aristocrats. So in the Irish times, before like the normal Irish people, when there was kings in Ireland that were real, those ones started off everything with magic and like Excalibur and King Arthur, and had like mystical stories. So they're like, okay, well, there's this like theme too that goes along with that. So with the Moore O'Neills, so that's Moore O'Neill, Moroni, and then I have mine, which is Moreno, because my grandfather was adopted when he was younger by the Mexican servants. So then they gave him an easier last name for them to pronounce. So instead of saying Moore O'Neill, they would say Moreno. So instead of saying Moroni, they would say Moreno. You know what I'm saying? And then nowadays people are like, well, doesn't that make you Mexican? I'm like, no way, Jose, because my family's not Mexican. So then I have all these like pure bloodlines, and it comes down to me. All right. So, and then to top it off, my family fought in those borders to keep the Mexicans down south, if we're going to be honest right here. All right. So we have the Irish times. There was a story about the Moore O'Neills. O'Neill cut his hand off. It was a red hand, so that's why I have red skin. He cuts off his hand and he throws it to the island, and he captures it first before the other ones do. So he becomes the rightful king, and ever since then, that's a bloodline that's been going through. And then, so I would be related to the family in England, without a doubt, because it's just there. Because our bloodline started it, and then there was all the other bloodlines mixed in, but those are parts of my bloodlines too, so then that just makes me more pure than them. So we got... Alright, this kind of triangle effect, but the triangle is important. The mother maiden crone idea, the Hecate. So there's a lot of stories about King Arthur and I think some other kings, but basically there's like this mother maiden crone, and even in the Ashkenazi stories they say they started from 3 women, and there's just the story of like 3 women and 3 men kind of thing. So 3 is a very important like mythical number. It doesn't mean that it's not real, it just means that it's a myth, that it's been happened so long that the facts are straight, but there's a little bit of like, fantasy, but not in a bad way. Just people don't just take it as serious as they used to. So like during those times, people will take it serious, but nowadays everybody's like, there's so much story, so much history, so much things going on that they just go with the mannequin flow. Yeah, so King Arthur would have been the O'Neills. So those are where the stories come from, and that create those legends. So basically I would be related to King Arthur. And Merlin is a wizard, obviously, so we have magical blood. So like through the high priest, all the way from Noah to Abraham to Moses, all of the Jews that were really great prophets were wizards. They had wands, they had rods, they could do magic. That was a very important thing. And no, like the Moses and the story of Ramses, you could see them as like being the same thing. There had to been some kind of similarity there. But magic is very prominent in Egyptian, Israel, Babylonian times. Everything, magic is very important. But with the mannequin, they'll be like, magic doesn't exist, magic's not real, and if it's real, that everybody can do it, that it's not that special, that maybe this and that. No. Magic is like the most important thing in the world, because magic says that there's a God. So if you take off magic, then you're saying God isn't real. You're saying magic's not real, God's not real. Magic's real. Mannequins can't perform magic. It's just a front. They only use it to make you believe that there's no such thing as God. They only do it to like kind of lie to you and like pull you away to distract you. And it's just a distraction. So if you're a real Ashkenazi, you just got to learn how to be like, oh, I see it, I get it, I understand it. So a long time ago, I had family members that were KKK. So you have these people up here that would fight in these wars to block off the southern states and keep them down, and they start taking over America. And then you have them being connected to Rosicrucians and Freemasonry. And you also have this hierarchy that is like Imperial Wizard, Grand Wizard. They use a lot of wizard terminology. And they follow a lot of the Freemason ideas, like the robes. Like when you're doing the Ars Goetia, you're using robes, you're using a cap, you're using wands, you're using fire, you're using elements. It's very Knights Templar stuff. But it's just after time, like you lose a lot of those special effects because people start seeing what's going on, they start disbanding, they start going underground, they start slowly die off. So whatever you see that's KKK now is not probably a real thing going on. It dies out after a while. Yeah, so let me see the part with that. Let's see, there's something important there that I'm trying to make a connection with, and the Ashkenazi. That one's kind of difficult. I'm trying to remember. There's something there, like a hidden secret in there. They do perform a lot of magic. So, the druidry part. So you have druids. That was like very important back then. Like the druids are like really, really important in the Ashkenazi, and just anything that is there, like druidry is extremely important. It's like a glue, it's a tie. So that's kind of letting you know there's that Irish ancestry, that it's not the way Irish people are now. So the way people over time, they envisioned Irish people as like mannequins. They were like, oh, there's so many of them that we should just kill them off, or we should just use them as a food supply. Like there's so many of them. They were very racist towards them. But you can't really bunch them up with the Ashkenazi thing. So there is all this, like, I don't know, if you look at Ronald Weasley, even though he's a pure blood wizard, he still has that orange hair and those freckles. Like I have freckles too, but like you just think, okay, he's poor, so then you don't really see that he's a pure blood. So there's that. It's like a very good way for the mannequin to have done that, because it's like, okay, look at all these Irish people, look at all these Jewish people. Now you can't see the Ashkenazi bloodline with the Irish bloodline that's pure, that was a Druid and Celtic that ruled over Egypt. You can't see any of that now because there's all of this now. All these mannequins have finally taken over all these other areas, so you can't see the truth anymore. And then the truth gets hidden. My truth gets hidden. And then the mannequins take over everything. They're like, okay, now we have a whole bunch of Italians here. We have a whole bunch of mannequins there. You know, we're on TV, we're mannequinizing everything. Because Ashkenazis wouldn't do what the mannequins do. Like the Jersey Shore people, those are all mannequins. They wouldn't have, an Ashkenazi wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have gone on TV and made a fool of themselves and lived their life like that. It just wouldn't have happened. And even now you have like Rothschilds, etc. And that all ties in. Roth, Astaroth, Asher. So a lot of like really high-end Ashkenazi bloodlines will claim to be Ashkenazi, and maybe they might have a little bit of it, but they won't have the same amount that I have. Mine is all the way up here. My DNA is like really, really pure blood, so I have like a really good divine lineage. They didn't spread out. They didn't breed with other races. You won't see that in my DNA test where they're sleeping with this person, that person, this person, spreading all their seeds everywhere. It was very concentrated. Only until now do you see kind of this like expansion, only because it goes into my family, and whatever else comes out after that or before that, they don't count because they're not part of that. They're just like little cousins here and there, but they don't count. So they kind of have that ability to live free, but everything up to my bloodline was very, very pure. Yeah, so then you have these wizards, you have this druidry, you have all these like hidden societies, then you have all these like public ones that kind of cover everything and just pat it down so you can't see what's underneath it. But the mannequins always follow the Ashkenazis. Okay, so let's do a little bit of history with my family. So when my grandfather was born and they were adopted in Arizona, and that's a lot of Mormon territory, so that's why we have the Moroni last name, the Moronial. But then since they were out there in war with a lot of Mexican countries, they had a lot of Mexican servants. So then they had these Mexican servants that adopted my grandparents because their parents went missing, but I think I'll save that for another time, so we'll just focus on my grandpa. But when he was born, a lot of Native American tribes were jealous of him because he had a lot of... Okay, so with our Native ancestry is different because we have only top tier Native American. Long time ago, people don't know this, but all the Native Americans you see now, they would be considered mannequins because they're not royal bloodlines, they're not pure bloodlines. They're not the same that they used to be. They're all mixed up and jumbled up and all over the place. But before, long time ago, back in the Native American days when there was no Americans anywhere, they would only let the princes and princesses, like the chiefs, only the high-end, the most official and worthy people be with each other. Anybody else, it's okay, you can do this, you can do that, but they would keep it very clean, nice, neat, and tidy. They wouldn't be spreading around everywhere, creating a ton of babies. That's why you don't see these big, huge cities. They were just very small. They knew what they were doing. They knew all their neighbors all the way across. They knew what was going on in America. They were very wise about that. Now, no, can't compare them to the past. So when they had their princesses, the princesses were very important. They would be making a bloodline that travels throughout those families, and it was just to keep that Native American bloodline, but it was very pure and it was very small. It wasn't big, it was small. So that one was incorporated into my family as a treaty, like a blessing, but it was also like the last one, and there was none that could like be better than it, and there's none after it. It only goes through our family now. So when the Native Americans see it, they're like mad because they're like, well, you're supposed to be with us and on our side, but they're not even real Native Americans. They're mannequins. They're just mixed in. Unfortunately, you got that mutt kind of ideology where you have them mixed in with different races and different people, even with each other. They can't have all that mixture going on. There wasn't supposed to be all that. And then there's so many, and they start, kind of going out places. It's not supposed to be like that. But so then my family has this really high potent dose of that like royal bloodline from the Native American side. So when my grandpa was born, they were really, really mad because they were like, oh no, this is another one of those ones. Because when you're a chief and you have high bloodlines like that and it's born into a boy, and then my mom has it too on her side, so then those two families were just really potent, and they were always next to each other, protecting those borders. So then when you get my family side, yes, they have the Irish, they have the German, but then they also have this like good dose of Native American bloodline, but it's like potent. It's not diluted, it's not mixed, it's not inferior, it's always superior. But I can't say, oh, I'm Native American the way you're Native American, because your Native American is different from mine. Yours is what the history books show. Mine is way deeper than that. Mine is way older than that. Mine is way more top tier. Unfortunately for you, but fortunately for me. And that's okay. Yeah, so they hated my grandpa, so they would like try to make things harder for him, but he was very intelligent, he was very smart. So if we kind of tie into how he did it, because when you get that patriarchal, it only goes to the father, and he had got it. So when he got that gift, it's like this Ashkenazi gift where you have the ability to alter the future or make decisions in the world. So you can make big decisions like, oh, I like this, I like that, I want this to happen, I want that to happen, and it happens. And you're kind of blessed and spearheaded to do things. And he was a Sagittarius. So for him, that's a fire sign, that's a horse. So he's like has a huge amount of chief energy, but he also has this druid energy. So he's like got this ability to be able to like go between both worlds and do what he wants to do and not be hindered. And that's the importance of bringing like those really like high end. And that was the last of those bloodlines that could even connect like that. So he has like extreme, you know, magical potential or power. So he can make big decisions, and people would be really, they would either help him or they would go against him. But a lot of people would help him because they didn't want to get on his bad side, because bad things would happen to them. And not because he needed to do anything, just because. With Sagittarius, they're fire signs. So if you mess with the fire sign, you get hurt really bad. If you mess with an air sign, you can keep doing it. But it's going to destroy you eventually, but people get away with more with hurting the air signs. So the fire signs are just crazy. You just usually can't really curse them the same way. So he had a lot of protection magic just from his own being. And he was able to go from Arizona all the way to California and make his living the way he wants. But my family had already conquered those areas. There's a fort out here called Fort Moore, and that was from our family. So they were Mormons, and they were fighting here, and they were protecting LA, and they were making sure it was ready for like when our family came to inhabit it. So we always do things before others, and we usually plan ahead. And they're usually military people. So not only are they rulers, they're also military. Yeah, I have like 10 more minutes. Okay, so we have a little bit of a history, how this Ashkenazi bloodline goes through this whole world, ends up here, and it's small. It's not diluted. It's pure, it's concentrated, but it's small. It's not a huge freaking family that's like sleeping around doing all these things, infesting the world like a mannequin would. It doesn't have mannequin values. It has Ashkenazi values. All right. So then we have my father, and then he was born out here too. So he's a Capricorn, so he's an earth sign. So when people try to do magic on him, it would hurt them really bad. So he was able to create a really good life for himself and for everybody around him. But when I was born, he was really quick to put the crown on me. And he was like, you take it. You're in charge of the family. You do everything now. Even if you're a little baby, I don't care. Because, like, I can't even control you. Like, you're too powerful for me. So, like, when I was a little baby, I was making big moves. I was like, I want this. I want that. I want to do this. I want to do that. And these aren't like small things. These were like big things, like telling people to move here, telling people to move there, telling people to buy this, do this for me. Like, I would be doing big things. Little kids don't do that. Little kids don't think like that. Like, I was beyond that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, I want this, I want that. I know how to do this, I know how to do that. But my mistake was separating myself from the male side of my family. So I pushed my mom to do things, and I would go with her instead of staying with my dad's side of the family, which is more of the pure bloodline where everybody's more royal, so everybody behaves a little differently. So they're more like, oh, we got to have everything. We got to have money. We got to have houses. We got to have cars. We got to have everything. Everything's under our control. But then on my mom's side, they're more violent in a way where they like to just take things from people, and they're more army oriented. So then I grew up with a whole bunch of gangsters, and I was able to manipulate them any way I wanted. They loved me, they took care of me, and I could do whatever I wanted. I had as many toys as you could imagine. Everybody would come to my house jealous. I was like Richie Rich, and I was surrounded by poor kids. And I would be like, oh, I want to be like the poor kids. I want to be down there with them. I want to see what life is like. Like, I want to share everything with the world. But then as time passes, you're like, oh crap, like I made a mistake. I should have kept everything to myself. I should have been selfish. I should have been more crucial. But that's okay. It's okay. It's a huge regret, but it's okay. At least I did everything in a way that I thought was right, and it allowed me to pull my family into a different direction where they can live a life that is really nice. But at the same time, now I have to just focus on myself and know that my family's safe and that they're okay, and I can kind of focus on what I want to do. And that's destroying the mannequins and conquering the earth and, becoming the next king of the earth. So now that I have all this like lineage stuff, that's important for me, but for the mannequin or any other human, it's not really important because there's nothing there that affects you. Like, I can't put my status on you. I can't explain it to you. You will never know because you're not my kind, so you wouldn't understand what it's like. You wouldn't understand the mechanics of it. You wouldn't understand how the brain works. You wouldn't understand how it feels. For a mannequin, you would only see it as like, oh, that's just a lot of talk. There's nothing behind it. There's nothing special about it. But that's why the mannequin does that, is to kind of distract you, take away what it is that's special about you, and give you a different identity. Something that says you're weak. Something that says you're a lie. Something that says that you don't have that power. You don't have that right. So it's easier for them to kind of just be like, see, like you're nobody. But then you kind of have to pull it back and be like, yes, I am somebody, and I don't need to prove it to you. I just need to destroy all the mannequins ASAP. So what I'm going forward is using my magic just to destroy the top mannequins and let the little ones sizzle out, because they're not going to survive very long without the head parasite. They don't advance, they don't evolve, they don't do anything special. They're very simple creatures to destroy. It's just that after so many years of protecting them in a way and giving them a lot of opportunities, if you've ever seen, there's this Melanie Martinez music video where she talks about leeches, and she's like, leeches surround me, and then they're like biting her and they're taking her energy, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where they just take over the whole house and she can't do nothing, and they basically eat her. And that's how it goes. There's another story in Revelations where you have the whore of Babylon, and she's riding her dragon, and she's doing whatever she wants, and the dragons fornicate with her. They're the kings of the earth, and she gets everything she wants, but then they betray her and they start eating her. And that's kind of the same story. I have me going through this world. I'm helping all these people. I'm making them bigger. I'm making them stronger. I think that there's going to be a future for me. And then they shut you up. They eat away at you. And they're like, no, you can't have a future. You don't have this. There's nothing after this. But it's okay, because of my bloodline, that gives me the opportunity to pull from there all of that, like, energy. Like, really pure, strong energy. Because it's super powerful. If it's happened to them countless times and they had to keep proving themselves, it lets me know, and they prove themselves where they win, but it lets me know that there is more than just a chance for me. It's a promise that I'll win. So I have to believe that promise. But if I don't believe it, then that means the mannequin's winning. So then the mannequin's like, haha, told you weren't special, told you weren't the chosen one, told you can't do these kinds of things. And then that's where I use my magic to just prove myself, and that's important. But okay, so that's Castle Demon Lord. That's how the story's going so far. It's based on reality. It has facts. Yeah. So if I'm going from there and I have to destroy, the head honcho of mannequins, it sounds pretty daunting. It's like an impossible task. But if I have my ancestry and my roots, and I have what I know to be true, then I know it will help me in the end, because there's been a lot of moments where I go to like New York or Washington DC or Washington State, and I have to literally walk into a room. I have to be able to command crowds, and I have to be able to go for what I want, because the mannequins are everywhere and they will try to intersect you every step of the way. But if you know who you are, you know where you come from, you know you did all the work, they can't hold you back. And it makes sense why you were so good at it when you were younger. And then you get older, and then these are things that are passed down from my family, so it's ingrained into me. This is normal for me. This is natural. This is what I was taught at birth. This is who I am. Like, these are things that have gone in our history. Like, when I was younger, we used to go to a lot of Freemason temples and Knights of Columbus and different places, like with veterans and like war veterans, like people that were like, sometimes they were like really like church people, or they could be conspiracy theorists, or they could be actors or famous people, and I had to interact with all those people. Little kids don't do that usually, where they meet a lot of people, and those people basically would give me gifts and education and knowledge, and they would tell me how things work. I would meet other witches. The witches would tell me things, teach me how the world works. Gangsters would teach me things. You get one or the other. You don't get all of that, and I would get all of it. I would get all my cakes, and I would eat all of them. So that makes me extremely special. And I think it also makes me dangerous to the mannequin, because there's nothing the mannequin can say that I don't know already. There's nothing the mannequin can know that I don't know already. There's nothing the mannequin can do that I haven't seen already. So I'm like light years ahead of the mannequin, because the mannequin's never seen this world that I come from. They've never seen the world that I come from. They've never been to Lancaster. They don't know anything about it. Now there's a lot of mannequins out there, but even then, they're really, really dumb. They're super... There's nothing inside their brains, trust me. So, as I destroy the king of the mannequins, sure, it's going to take some time, but at least it gives me a chance to make videos like this where I can kind of look back later and be like, okay, that happened during this time. Is there any patterns I can notice? What was happening? And it helps me remember things, because I forget things so quickly, but I remember them very detailed and vividly. But at the same time, I forget them so much because I'm always making new room for new ideas and new spaces and new advancements in my own life. So sometimes I have to just step back and be like, what did I do again? Oh yeah, and then it all makes sense. But yeah, just a journal, just a better understanding of like the world of Castle Demon Lord, because that's what I'm calling my game. Basically it's a tale of revenge about how I make it back to the top, and I guess I kind of take my time doing it, but I know I'm going to go really fast. It's just going to take me a while to get some momentum. But yeah, I can notice in my magic lately, the rituals and the spells that I've done to like hurt the Illuminati mannequin, the king of the mannequins, and I've been noticing that he's like really desperate, but then after a while things get better around me, but things are getting worse for him, but he's not really being public about it. When you start, like, let's say you're hitting Nicki Minaj. She's a major mannequin. You're hitting her with spiritual warfare. She's going to keep putting on this mask that everything's okay. You're not going to really notice her. She's not going to make any big news or statements. But the minute you start giving her a little bit of energy, like, yeah, she's the best, she's great, then she'll pop up. So maybe I'll do a spell that, like, gets them to pop up and break. Gets them to pop up and break. But I don't know. There's a lot of spells that I could be working on, but the important thing to remember is the mannequin doesn't really have a brain. It's more based off of like a certain instinct to survive. So they're always going to be doing things to survive and make it look good. But they don't have that brain thing that lets them think what's going on. So you can literally say anything in the world. Like, I could tell you that whole story and it could be the most powerful story in the world, but to a mannequin it means nothing. So you could do like so much in the world, but to the mannequin it means nothing. You could destroy all the mannequins in the world, but to the mannequin it means nothing, because they go to hell. So literally life means nothing to them, but they'll live here because that's like, they're like a parasite that has to leech and claw their way into the world and stay there. They don't want to let go of it. They want it to feel the pain that it's going through. They want the world to know that there's a hell. But you kind of have to snip away at the mannequin's roots and like let them float themselves into hell, and just keep pushing them in there, seal them up, and let them burn, because it's gonna happen eventually over time. Just give it a minute. It'll happen. It's already happening. There's been a lot more action on the news lately, and that's a good thing. That's always a good sign that the mannequins are destroying themselves, and that's what you need to let happen. So when there's bad things going on in the world, just remember good things are going to happen for you after that, because it's opening doors for you. Mannequin gets destroyed, a door opens for you. Just trust the process. Trust your higher power. Trust yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself love. Give yourself good vibrations. Acknowledge who you are. Enjoy your life. Enjoy what you do with it. Because even though these are like, even though these are like a lot of things you have to do, just remember like this, and it's so painful to get where you need to be, but it's gonna be worth it. And right now, just embrace those moments that you have fighting, because these are moments that are gonna inspire you later, because they're gonna be like, yeah, I put so much energy into defeating those mannequins, and when I finally defeated them, it was worth it. But when I look back on it, I don't have bad memories. I have good memories, because I know that I did the right thing to defeat them. I know I did the right rituals. I know I like A+'d all their tests. Like, I know I defeated the mannequins. So you have to just remember that, and just keep that really positive energy. Like, imagine Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's out there destroying vampires day to day. Like, can you imagine how she feels when she gets home? She's probably like, dang, I just ruined a family. But you know what? I'm doing the right thing. Maybe I saved another family. Maybe I did the right thing. Maybe like things are going to get harder, but it's okay, because I'm going to keep fighting until I get them all out of here. And that's just what you have to do. So that's the Illuminati Broadcast. I'm David Moore. I'm just teaching you a little bit about history, the real history, just give you a better idea. Of course, there's a lot of other things in history that are really important and beautiful, and you should acknowledge it. But there's a history that's kind of underneath all those webs, and you probably would never have heard of it if I didn't share it, because that's like family trade secrets that we don't share with anybody, because we don't really talk to people outside of our race or our family. Like, we don't associate with nobody different than us. Nobody. Nope. And if we do, we barely tell you anything, and you love us because we're the nicest people on earth. But we really don't like your kind. Like, we don't like mannequins. So, like, we keep ourselves away from the world. But I have to pull myself out of my comfort zone. I have to go deep into mannequin territory. I have to reveal myself, and I have to go through with it, because this is going to be advantageous for me, because the more that the mannequin knows about me, the more the mannequin gets destroyed, because it can't handle the logic behind it. Their brains explode and they destroy themselves. So just going to keep doing me. Rise above, stay blessed. Amen. Hallelujah. Catch you guys later. Bye.